Hello and welcome to the Chamber Connection Show. Today I have a very special guest with me. When we come to this season, we start rolling into the season, my family and I tend to look at the things that we're grateful for, thankful for, the things that we're blessed with, and one of those things is a country that we can live in and feel safe. And today I've invited Tim Burley to join me. Thank you for coming today.
No, thank you for the invite.
We're going to talk about veterans today. We've just celebrated Veterans Day. We were both at the Saluting Community Heroes event last night. You have so many pieces and parts in the veterans world.
The veterans community provides so much in this community. We had talked before this about just the veteran businesses contributing to 10 to 11% of the gross domestic product in the
When
United
they're
States.
only 2 to 3%.
Yes, I was sitting having a conversation with our high school guidance counselor who is an Iraq-Afghanistan veteran, but we're having a light conversation and we're talking about how we can help each other.
Right.
And how we can help with the school and veterans can assist with projects there and how they can assist us. The American Legion has the oratorical contest, which is a constitutional contest, and students can win money doing this for college.
I know, right.
And it's by the time they're done, if you made it to the national, you would make $35,000. That's what the student would win at the national level.
Whoa, that's a lot of money. So let's just back up a little bit. Tim, you are currently the commander of the Legion, the American
Yes.
Legion here in town.
We teamed up with the VFW because when we have our meetings, we have a larger crowd,
Right.
which won't fit into that space. And the VFW are our veteran brothers, as are the DAV and sisters. And I'm going to make sure I say that numerous times today because there are quite a few female veterans in this community who are now coming out of the woodwork a little bit since we've put
Right.
the emphasis on, hey, we need your help.
There was one at our table last night.
Yes, there
Yeah.
was, and I bump into him every day. Last meeting, Lisa, who does the Veterans TV show here, is a wonderful individual, and she really helps us with the questions we have about disabled female veterans,
Right.
which I as a male can't answer. So when we call on the resources and say, hey, come help us.
So one of the reasons that I wanted to talk with Tim today, because we've had lots of conversations, mostly centered around veterans and how we can help them, some of the projects that you're doing. So I wanted people to get a sense of what is it like to, so right now you're working on a project to bring veterans home. Welcome home.
Welcomehome.vet.
So they can get integrated and assimilated into a community with a job. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Correct. So the impetus of the program started a couple of years ago and even before I became the commander of the Legion here, Saluting Community Heroes was a huge impact. Shad Catcher is a mentor, and he's been wonderful to work with, and he keeps sticking a little knife in my back and says, keep going, keep going. And a lot of veterans do that because we don't always find the time. I went full time into veterans advocacy. Welcome Home Veteran, or VET, .vet is what it's called, is going to be a Midwest program. We're working with Department of Defense. We're working with a lot of different angles on this, and it's a transition program. The military transitions veterans out, but once they get out, they don't have the resources.
They're just kind of standing there on the sidewalk after they get off the bus or the plane, kind of.
Correct. You sent them away at 18 with no life skills. The military takes care of most of those life skills, their health insurance, food, clothing, all that's taken care of. They get
Right.
married, have a family, they struggle through this, so when they come back to the community, they're kind of floating around, usually living in their parents' basement until they collect enough money because they didn't realize how much it was going to cost to get an
Right.
apartment or get a home. So we've created a program and with grants and assistance for these young veterans. Now, the key to this program is we want them to come to Hutchinson, one, because we're veteran friendly, and two, we need the employees. We need a job base.
Amen.
Plus, veterans are entrepreneurial, and having veterans come into the community and starting a business is a wonderful thing.
So we've talked about this. Just imagine a young person, male or female, who's gone through, what is a tour? 3 years?
3, 4 years.
4 years, right?
Is fairly typical.
having to get up when they're told to get up so they can show up on time. You work until the work is done, so they have a work ethic that's been literally drilled into them, because that's what you have to do in the military. And then they have these incredible jobs and responsibilities. They're perfect for our workforce.
And I take my son, and I'll use him as an example. I mean, he went through Hutchinson High School. You heard me talk about it the other day. He took Spanish. He was impressed with languages, went into the military.
He was impressed by languages, so he was curious.
The teacher made him curious.
Okay.
So we talk about how teachers influence our life, and I'll take us on this little bit of an angle. Because another son of mine who went in the military is a mechanic, and he was influenced by the teachers at the high school to take that track, and he's now back here working in his industry and going to the tech school for robotics and automation. So he wants to stay in Hutchinson. He wants to contribute to our industry, either Uponor, 3M, one of those manufacturing facilities, because that's what he desires to do. He loves working on those kind of things. The other son's now in college. He wants to give back, but you have a Spanish teacher who said, you know what, you're really good at this. And he enjoyed it, went into the military, went into languages, now speaks, I don't know how many languages, I think 6 different languages, that he learned in a year and a half.
With dialects.
Yes, he has to have a certain level for the National Security Agency. So he speaks a better Persian Farsi right now than most Persian Farsi citizens, the people who speak Persian Farsi. So he can read, write, and communicate at real time in Persian Farsi, which they learned in a year and a half. So
I'm still saying uno, dos, tres, cuatro. That's not my skill. That's not my talent.
And I spent 3 years in Germany, and because I was in the military in Germany, I learned German in about 6 months. So I can speak fairly fluent German. So not only are veterans, they adapt, they overcome, and they're quick learners. So I've talked to several businesses in town who employ veterans and would like more, because they say, you know what, at 9 o'clock at night, when I need to have a customer who has a broke down tractor, who do I call?
Who's going to call?
The veteran goes out and does it, because they're committed to us and the loyalty. And he said, it's funny. And when I left the company I was with prior to this, which was HVAC, I felt really bad. I was loyal to that company. And I told my wife, I said, it's harder for me to tell them I'm leaving, and it's not a bad thing that I'm leaving.
Right.
And I'm not doing it because I'm angry at them. I'm doing it because I have a passion in my life that I want to follow. And I was kind of scared to sit down and talk to them.
Right.
And they were at the event last night, supporting the event.
I saw that.
I still refer people to them all the time, because when I sat down with them, they were like, this is exactly what you need to do. We've been waiting for this moment. Go do it.
Right.
And I'm still their biggest advocate, because that's how they support the people we have.
And that's how, as somebody who's a veteran, that's innate. I think you or somebody else said it last night, that you go somewhere and you see all these people. Maybe it was at the high school the other day. Tim did the Veterans Day program at the high school here in Hutchinson. You get there and you look around and go, this is going to be a soldier, but these are the people who have your 6, right? These are the people who have your back.
Let's be brutally honest. I mean, when I went into basic training, there were guys who came from gangs. There were people who came from broken families. There were a lot of, it wasn't like the valedictorians selected across the United States. But I watched these men and women. I watched my own 2 sons, and I never realized it myself what I had turned into. I mean, volunteerism, serving is still in me, and it's still in so many veterans. We had talked about the Chamber of Commerce, and you know, a lot of the veterans in like the Legion were like, what are we doing with the Chamber of Commerce? Why are we members of the Chamber of Commerce? Well, one, when veterans come into this community, we want them to know they're employable. The Chamber provides that. They know all the business and industry. I can call Mary or call the Chamber and say, listen, I have a vet moving into town. What do we have for me as the skills? I think I've sent you, we have a respiratory therapist who's looking at moving here. And actually I was just in the another meeting talking about this community, and he is a Black Navy veteran. And he said, well, your community's, you know, isn't very diverse. I said, but let's not talk about the diversity. Let's talk about the fact that they accept you for who you are, and that's Hutchinson.
And you have a skill that we need.
Exactly.
Respiratory therapists are not something that you find on every street corner. I worked at the hospital. I remember. I have friends who work in respiratory therapy.
So when I was laying on a table with a cardio problem, I didn't say, oh, well, your skin color is this, so I need
Amen.
somebody who's
Right?
this skin
Yes,
color.
exactly.
And so I explained that to him, and I said, Hutchinson is very open to diversity. In fact, Chris Hoffman at the high school, when I talked to him, I said, you're going to have these young students coming in who have been in diverse situations. They've been around military bases. They've been around the world. Use them as a tool to teach.
Yeah.
Because they've experienced it. And they bring a value because they've been trained by military fathers and mothers, and they've been through some tough times with deployments and things like that, where haven't had their dad there or their
Right.
mom there. And so
what makes us stronger? The things that we've gone through when we've been through adversarial situations.
Sure.
When we've been through situations that are difficult.
And they're resilient.
Resilience is huge.
And I think Taya Kyle said it last night. It's the check and checkmate of how do we deal with problems and how do we deal with problems in school. And we know they exist.
Right.
But we've talked actually about, and through Mary and having a conversation with Mary about providing a veteran team in case there was an incident in this community. We're all trained in first aid, medical care, like
Right.
EMTs basically,
Yep.
and in security. And if there was an incident in this city, I can guarantee you veterans would come out of the woodwork because that's our nature.
Right.
How do we help?
So one of the things that you said at the high school that also resonated with me, because whenever I meet someone and I find out that they have served our country, I always thank them. But you said something interesting about thanking a veteran and the best way that you could thank a veteran.
Because a lot of people, we get a little bit gun shy with it sometimes because people, especially on Veterans Day, thank you for your service, thank you for your service. We hear it a lot and we say thank you, and I started thinking about why are they thanking me? Because I don't look at my service as being anything special.
Nor do probably 99.9% of the veterans.
Correct. It took me years just to put a hat on to say I was a veteran.
Yes.
And it's I went and did my duty. I served my country, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get the GI Bill for my education. I did that.
Yep.
Yes, I froze a lot of nights. Yes, I got injured. Yes, I can't hear very well anymore. But I tell people all the time, I used to tell people when they said thank you for your service, I just tell them I did it for you. Because that's exactly why I did it. Mm-hmm. I did it for everybody in this country. And I started thinking about it, and I realized people were asking a question, and I started answering it. And I tell them, do you want to know how you could help? Because
you don't know what else to say to somebody who's literally put their life on the line.
Exactly.
Right? I don't know how to truly say thank you for the debt of gratitude that I have for people who have put themselves in harm's way or in potentially harm's way for service. Because like you, I know many people who went for the GI Bill, but you don't know what you're getting into in certain times, right?
Exactly. It goes back to, I was with a suicidal veteran a couple weeks ago. And normally after I'm with a suicidal veteran, I'll stop by a church somewhere and just go into the sanctuary. It's a quiet spot for me to go reflect on what I said, maybe say a little prayer to make sure that individual, that veteran, gets the help they need, and we try to get them everything they need. But when you leave, it's like you're leaving a family member and saying, okay, somebody else take care of them, and you've been responsible. And I was sitting in the sanctuary, and the pastor walked by and said, do you want the lights on? I said, no, I'm waiting for the shining light to come through the window. And he sat down with me, and he said, I don't know how you do it. And he said, I don't know what I would say to a veteran who was suicidal coming in. I'd say, here's my card, please call me, and we'll tackle this together, because I know what they're going through, and I've experienced it. And I know the resources we can get them to, because we're going to dig into this and think of this as normal. I always tell people, a veteran tells you they're going to commit suicide, they're going to commit suicide.
Right.
In the civilian world, people put it on Facebook all the time. I'm done, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
It's the social media reach out, here I am. And I'm not poo-pooing that. But what I'm saying is there's veterans are
different way.
decisive. And if they say they're going to do it, they've already planned for it. So it's the very negative side of it. And understand, 90% of veterans are employable. There's a very small population of veterans who actually experience PTSD and the trauma associated with it, and its triggers that associate it.
Right.
So in Hutchinson, which is great for the Welcome Home.vet program, is we don't have the triggers here. We don't have a crime rate because we have an incredible police department. We have an incredible volunteer network which helps them continue to serve. I do it because I get to meet Mary, and I get to see, Roman Blomke, and I get to see, Mr. Renner, and all these people who are just fun people to be around, and they're not veterans, but they serve this community.
But they serve in a different way. So that's the point of what can you do when you're saying thank you to a veteran. So one of the very powerful things that you did on Monday, and I knew that you were going to do this, you asked and it's perfect today because we're recording today. The boys football team is going to state. Girls swimming left this morning. You asked the offensive line and the defensive line to stand up.
Correct.
11 people on each of those lines, which equals 22. 22 is a significant number.
22 is the number of veterans who take their lives every day in the United States. And I'm very happy with our school here because I actually talked to the principal, Rob, and before I gave that presentation, and I asked him if he was okay with that, and we had a conversation of the segue, because I didn't want to shock students, but I think in high school we need to start facing some real facts that we have high school students doing the same thing. And the position I put on it was, we're picking on each other and we're hurting each other. And I also made the comment, war isn't going to stop till we stop hate. And when we go to a high school, we go to an elementary school, we intrinsically have hate, where this kid hates this kid or this person hates this person, and that drives people into a cocoon because they don't feel comfortable and we're getting picked on, and we decide to take our life. Instead of surrounding that person with love and caring, we shy away. In fact, most of the veterans' families of suicidal veterans want nothing to do with that veteran because they don't know what to do. And so they'll segue out of it. And what we normally do now is, I was in Nashville and ran into a brother of a veteran who was suicidal. He was a bouncer at a bar. Now, I was the designated driver, so I'm completely innocent, and that's why I was talking to the barber, or to the bouncer, because, I like talking to people.
No, really?
It happens.
On occasion?
Yes. I'm in Nashville and people are like, okay, you're down by the homeless people and finding out who the veterans are. What are you doing? And it was because they're my brothers and sisters and I want to make sure they're cared for. I told you last night I brought the Nashville American Legion commander down to a Walmart because they're cutting the DARE program there, and I called them up. They were like, we're collecting for funding. And I said, why?
For a DARE program?
Yes.
Which has been known to be successful.
In the inner city.
Yeah.
They only cut the inner city. So this young lady came up and she was like, and I said, let's make some phone calls. And she, what? And I said, let's call your name. He was 3 blocks away, lived 3 blocks away. So I said, get over here. And he came over. I said, I'm going to introduce you to this young lady. He's like, how do you know her? You're from Minnesota. I said, I just met her like 5 minutes ago. But this is a great program for your American Legion to step in on because this is youth and a youth program, and it's a youth drug program. And when I left them, they were exchanging cards, and she was going to be attending one of their meetings, and they wanted to help. And what better place to bring two people together to help, inner city youth with drug addiction and youth across America who are experiencing these things than there. But going back to the bouncer, his brother was a Iraq vet from 2007, and they've had a lot of problems with him. And he said, we don't even talk to him anymore because we hate him because he's this, this, and this. And I said, why don't you call some of his brothers who served with him who are successful and have them talk to him? And I gave him my card, and he actually called me earlier this week and said, you know what, a bunch of the guys came out and they're surrounding him and taking care of him and getting him the help, and he accepted it. And I said, it's because they are his brothers, and that's who he's looking at as his family. That's what he recognizes now as family. You are his family, but you don't know how to deal with it, so you chastise him and maybe picked on him a little and black sheeped him a little bit and let's not invite him because he might be angry today.
Right.
Those guys don't look at that.
They don't look
and
at
the
it that
women
way.
don't look
Yeah.
at that. They're just a soldier, and we're going to make sure they're okay.
So when we're talking, if somebody's running into, they've run into somebody who's a veteran who is clearly struggling, maybe they know you, maybe they don't know you. I mean, I hope that everybody in Hutchinson knows who you are. Maybe now everybody does. But how can they immediately help that person who might be in crisis?
You have several ways. You have our VSO, our Veteran Service Officer in the county, and Jim Lauer, and Cassandra. And I'm sorry, Cassandra, if you're watching this, I forgot your last name. Kerrigan, there we go. In a room of 450 people.
Got it.
You have two incredible people there, and the great part is we have male-female. So if a female veteran is experiencing issues and she doesn't want to talk about it with a male, we have Cassandra, who's incredible.
Yep.
And so that would be a first step. They can call me. I'll be very honest with you. We've stopped in Hutchinson 3 veteran suicides this year. Nobody will ever know who they were.
They don't need to.
No, they're in care. Several of them were medical issues that drove them to that, where mental health drugs were either taken away or misprescribed. But that's taken care of. They're okay now, and productive members of the community. But I talk to them all the time to make sure they're okay, and it's great because they're like, I'm finally feeling good. But that's what we're trying to do here, is just have each other's backs.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the community that can connect with the right people. So if you call the chamber at 587-5252, we can connect you with other people in the community that have more expertise, and sometimes it's a brother or a sister who's been through the same thing. I would never, ever pretend to know what you or any other veteran have been through, and every veteran is different.
Yes.
Depending on where they were, who they are as a human, and their personality. But they're all a little bit different, but you have a much better idea of what that is and how to help them. I have a friend who has been working with veterans for a long time and was on the phone with somebody who was suicidal and literally was on FaceTime with them. Got help, called 911 while they were FaceTiming, while that person was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and until they were in the hospital, in the ER, getting the assistance that they needed. An hour and a half FaceTime is nothing to a brother or sister.
No, that's the time that has no value.
Yep.
I'll be honest with you, because and I'm just going to say it, that's the value God puts on us and says, this is what you owe the world.
Yeah.
And I will always, that's where I go with this, because you have to have some kind of something. I have therapists who I meet with coffee who say, Tim, are you okay? You're dealing with this every day. Are you okay? And I am. I'm wonderful because it's not the satisfaction. It's not a plaque on the wall. I have nothing on my walls. In fact, I tell my wife, someday I'll get to the point where I actually want to hang one up because I feel that I've succeeded. I'll continue to serve till the day I die. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And like, she was going to buy a paver for me at Veterans Park. I said, why would you do that? I'm not dead. And she said, well, it's for every veteran. I said,
right.
I'm not dead yet.
Doesn't
Memorialize me after I'm dead.
Yeah.
And I said, problem is someone will pick that brick up and throw it at someone, because that's kind of how I handle things sometimes. You get angry. Ben Peterson last night, who was the master of ceremonies, he had 7 of his brothers die.
The first week, I think he said.
Yes, the first week he was overseas, and he is now traveling to military bases, telling his story and helping young soldiers right now who are active duty with, this is how we deal with this, and this is how we win. And he's converting people to use their spiritual guidance and use things like that to fight through it. And so you have all these wonderful people in the veterans community who are doing all these great things.
Yeah.
And Paul Ruffin, who's my partner in Welcome Home Vet, when we were talking, he introduced me the other day, and he was talking about, he's a big hippie from the 60s, the bands, Woodstock, all that. And he said, back during the time of the 60s, 70s, a lot of the bands like Aerosmith and bands like that didn't actually do their own recording of their musical instruments. There were people who did that. He said they were the glam on the stage, but in the recording studio was somebody else. He said they're kind of the unsung heroes of that generation. And he said the people working in the veterans community are kind of those unsung heroes because we're not looking for credit. We're just looking at filling our soul and doing what's right by our brothers and sisters.
So I want to just make sure, if you are a business or you know a business that is interested in learning more about what is involved in hiring a veteran, because it's different, because there's different language, there's other things that are involved in hiring a veteran, very fulfilling, but I would say that there's some special circumstances that maybe you should know about. Call the chamber and we'll hook you up with Tim. Great opportunities to help veterans who are coming out of the service. Also, the one thing that I just want to comment really quick before we wrap this up, you said, we are a very veteran-friendly community, and we are, except when it comes to unscheduled fireworks. Can I just say it? I'm just going to say it. So if you or your neighbors or somebody who does fireworks, under the dark of night on an unscheduled event, veterans who have been through war tend to plan around 4th of July, or here in Hutchinson, they plan around the fireworks that happen that are scheduled in the community.
And we work prior to the 4th of July, and that time, Independence Day, a couple weeks before that, we start working with veterans and getting the message out. Listen, we know this is going to happen. We know there's triggers, so we've gotten very good at, listen, we know it's going to happen. We need, be with somebody or wear hearing protection or whatever it might be. So we've done that. Yes, in fact, I'm a person who's the good part is I'm partially deaf now. But if they're next to me, in fact, on the 4th of July, I get elected to light them because, hey, he's already deaf.
Take out the hearing aids.
Take out the hearing aids.
But if you're not catching on to this conversation, let me just be very clear. Fireworks can sound like mortar rounds.
Yes, they can.
And that can be a really big trigger for veterans. So just be thoughtful of that. And if you happen to know that your neighbors down the road or next door are going to be doing some fireworks, this might be just a great opportunity to say, you know what, do we know some veterans around? Or maybe let's not do it. How about not do it since it's not legal in Minnesota? However, I know that there are people who do it, but I just think that that's one thing that we can educate you about, and the opportunity to bring some great people on to your team at a business is huge.
We've got some exciting news with Welcome Home Vet and you're familiar with it, and it'll be happening here in the next month or two.
But we're just going to go like this.
Right now we are. Mary's still trying to pull other information
I'm digging
out of me, and that's okay. I always know Mary's going to keep the lips sealed. But it's going to be very special for the community of Hutchinson. We've already been working this program for a while, and actually I got to meet some of the young couples last night, and I've met them before, but to bring them to that event as part of this program, and to have sponsors like Runnings here in the community sponsor veterans to sit at those tables with them, and all of those veterans leaving were just so grateful to Runnings here in the community
to be able
for
to
doing that for them. But it also brought them into a new network that they were completely unfamiliar with.
Right.
And one of the young couples just moved to Hutchinson, and here's their comment. This is an incredible community. Much in Hutch. Incredible community. Mary, I know you love to hear that.
I do love to hear that.
But
I believe that it's true.
And you make us believe it's true. Because you point out those things, and that's why we love being part of the chamber, is because it's so positive, and it makes our community positive, which makes our veterans positive. I know.
All right. With that, what else can I say? I hope that you'll join us for the next Chamber Connection. Tim, thank you so much for all that you do for our entire community, the veterans, the non-veterans, the parks, the people, and our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be well.